signs in the sun, moon, and stars. This is Mazzaroth calendar decoded. Welcome back, family. Today we are going to do an extremely deep dive on the Book of Enoch, on the Book of Jubilees, on celestial mechanics, and a whole lot more. So my first starting point is a special request to all of those watching this video. If you really want to understand these things, then I need you to grab your Bible. I need you to grab a notebook or some paper and a pen or a pencil. And I'm going to need you to track along with me because there's a lot to uncover. I have hours and hours and hours of material for this decode. And we're going to have to break this up into multiple parts. It could end up being a 5 or 6 part series because of the amount of material that I have to present before the body. And if you really want to learn these things, it's important to interact with this study. And this is not going to be easy for anybody that does not have a deep grasp in the Mazzaroth already. If you're unfamiliar or you're new to this, the Mazzaroth, then this could be a very good place to start. But again, we're going to need you to participate and prove these things out for yourself because I'm going to only scratch the surface because there's so much material. I'm going to connect all the dots. I'm going to attach all the links so that you'll be able to do your own research on this and do even a deeper dive than what I present. But I believe it's imperative for me to disclose all this information for people to understand how this works. This has not been widely disclosed to the body of Messiah. The mainstream churches won't touch it with a 100-foot pole. They do not believe that the Book of Enoch or the Book of Jubilees are part of the canon, even though they were both found in the Dead Sea Scrolls and they are both in the Ethiopian canon. Also in the Orthodox Bible from Russia and from other areas. So it's vitally important for us to discover these things for ourselves and prove them out for ourselves. Don't take my word for it. That's why we're going to do a deep dive because in order for you to be standing on solid ground, you need to have a lot of evidence. And so that's what we're going to be doing in this series is presenting all the evidence. In my opinion, it's unmistakable evidence that once you have this under your feet, then all the rest of it becomes easily understandable. And then it'll give you a deeper grasp of the things that I'm presenting using Stellarium and the Skylive and the other tools that we use to present the Mazzaroth decodes. So right now we're going to do a quick overview. If you have your pen and paper, then you can write this down because I think it's important for everybody to track with me. So if you don't have your pen and paper, then please just pause this and go grab your notebook because I'm going to be first presenting an overview. And I think it's important for everybody who's watching this, if you really want to learn the Mazzaroth, it's going to be important for you to write these things down. And that way you can prove out for yourself what my channel is about, why I'm doing this type of work, and how it works. And this will give you the deep understanding and it's virtually impossible for me to um, walk backwards in time and express to you the things that I've learned over almost 30 years of research. I'm not new to any of this. I began studying the Dead Sea Scrolls in my late 20s, and I'm 57 years old now. So this is, I'm not new to any of this. And um, if you're just now coming into the understanding of the Mazzaroth and you've been listening to the typical um, Christians using either sun calendars or moon calendars or lunisolar calendars, you just won't be able to grasp this and without the proof that I'm going to lay down. So if you have your pen and paper, then let's go ahead and do a quick overview. You can just write down each of these points, and then we're going to get into the study. So first, we're going to be talking about the Book of Jubilees and the 364-day count in the Book of Jubilees. We're going to be doing a deep dive in the Book of Enoch and that 364-day calendar. Both of these are very, very similar. There are some differences, so we are going to point those differences out. And again, the Jubilees and Enoch calendar are both a 364-day calendar. Anybody who tells you that there is a 360-day calendar is completely, utterly misunderstanding the words in the book of Enoch. They just grab these numbers out and they don't have a way to prove it out. The book of Enoch talks about a 360 days, but that is because those are the actual counted days, and there are four posts or four corners or the four celestial markers that aren't typically counted in the book of Enoch because they're considered pillars. And this is where a lot of the flat earthers get their ideas about celestial mechanics, and we'll be going into the celestial mechanics also. So next we're gonna be talking about that 364-day calendar of Enoch and Jubilees. We're also going to be talking about the 354-day moon calendar. And the 10-day difference that is talked about in the book of Jubilees. We're also going to be talking about the 365.25, or that's an approximate day calendar, solar calendar. And we're going to be talking about the Dendera zodiac and the stars Spica and Sirius, the dog star. We're going to be talking about orbital mechanics and Johannes Kepler. We're going to be talking about Kepler's laws of planetary motion. We're going to be discussing Newton's laws of motion. We're going to be discussing the faithful witness of the moon and the Metonic cycles. We're going to be talking about the pre-Exodus calendar of Enochian time. We're going to be discussing retrograde motion of the planets. We're going to be talking about stellarium and star mapping. We're going to be talking about the great year, or the approximate 26,000 year um, cycle. We're going to be talking about Ptolemy and Hipparchus and the 1 degree every 72 years that was found. We're going to be talking about geocentric versus heliocentric models. And then we're going to be tying all these things together to prove out our Mazzaroth calendar and the timing of the calendar. And so this is our overview. If you write these things down, then you can make notes when I go through each of these sections. So again, I want to welcome everybody back. This is not going to be for the faint of heart. This is a deep dive. Forgive me for being late on this. I have been dealing with some incredible, I mean, just the worst mold allergies I've ever experienced in my life. And the reason I think I have responded so extremely is because I got sick from my daughter when she was in school. She brought some kind of respiratory virus home. She was really, really sick, and I got whacked really hard. I have extreme allergies to almost everything. I mean, if I pass somebody and they've got too much um, perfume or cologne on, I will go into a sneezing fit. Um, I can't be around animals. And in my last place, my next door neighbor had really extremely hairy dogs, and they never cleaned up the hallway or the stairway, and there was just dog hair everywhere. And so every day I had, it was only the entrance and the exit, but I had to deal with that, and it slowly but surely whittled down my immune system, and I think that's why I got so sick from the respiratory virus. Then I just couldn't handle the area where I was living, and I decided that it was time for me to move. And because I was so sick, I couldn't afford to catch up with rent, so I had to take emergency action and move to a place where I could literally trade for rent because of the work contracts I have. So, um, forgive me for being late on this, but I have to have a certain amount of mental capacity, and I don't want to be hacking and sneezing, and my sinuses were in full drain mode. constantly all day long having to blow my nose. And I'm really hypersensitive to allergy medications. The only allergy medicine that I could use creates a little bit of uh, lethargy. I get really tired. I, I don't have the brain power that's necessary for me to do this work. So over the last couple days, I released some shorter videos just to get me up to speed. I purchased a Mag Air ionizer. It immediately began to help me, and I think my body's just finishing up um, the purging of all of these allergens. This morning was really bad. I didn't think I was even going to be able to get to doing this today. Um, but I took my allergy meds. It made me really tired, so I knew that was coming. So I just took a nap and I'm back up and I'm feeling good enough to at least get this first video released. Again, this is not going to be a short disclosure, and I think it's vital for everyone to have all this information to prove these matters out. So let's go ahead and jump into the very first part of this study. This is the Wikipedia for the myth of the flat earth. So let's go ahead and begin here for all of you flat earthers out there. This is, excuse me, fam. This is going to be the most important part in your understanding because there's a lot of misconceptions out there. There's a lot of people who they just they jump on a lot of different theories without really taking the time to prove these matters out. So that's what I'm going to jump on first is proving out the myth of the flat earth. So let's go ahead and begin. This article is about the misconception that medieval scholars believe in a flat earth. For actual flat earth cosmologies, see flat earth. And this, I'm going to connect all of the links so that you can go do your own research. The myth of the flat earth or the flat earth air is a modern historical misconception that European scholars and educated people during the Middle Ages believed the earth to be flat. According to Stephen Jay Gould, there never was a period of flat earth darkness among the scholars. Regardless of how the public at large may have conceptualized our planet both then and now, Greek knowledge of sphericity never faded, and all major medieval scholars accepted the Earth's roundness as an established fact of cosmology. Historians of science David Lindbergh and Ronald Numbers point out that there was scarcely a Christian scholar in the Middle Ages who did not acknowledge Earth's sphericity and even known its approximate circumference. Historian Jeffrey Burton Russell says that flat earth air flourished most between 1870 and 1920 and had to do with the ideology setting created by struggles over biological evolution. Russell claims, with extraordinary few exceptions, no educated person in the history of Western civilization from the 3rd century BC onward believed that the earth was flat and ascribes popularization of the flat earth myth to histories by John William Draper, Andrew Dixon White, and Washington Irving. The earliest clear documentation of the idea of a spherical earth comes from the ancient Greeks in the 5th century BC. The belief was widespread in the Greek world that Eratosthenes calculated the circumference of Earth around 240 BC. This knowledge spread with Greek influence such that during the Middle Ages, 600 to 1000 AD, most European and Middle Eastern scholars espoused Earth sphericity. Belief in a flat Earth among educated Europeans was almost non-existent from the late Middle Ages, 1300 to 1500 AD onward. Though fanciful depictions appear in art, such as the exterior panels of Hieronymus Bosch's famous triptych, The Garden of Earthly Delights, in which a disc-shaped earth is shown floating inside a transparent sphere. In Inventing the Flat Earth, Columbus and modern historians Jeffrey Russell describes the flat earth theory as a fable used to impugn modern civilizations and creationism. James Hannam wrote, "The myth that people in the Middle Ages thought the earth is flat appears to date from the 17th century as part of a campaign by Protestants against Catholic teaching. But it gained currency in the 19th century thanks to inaccurate histories such as John William Draper's History of the Conflict Between Religion and Science, 1874, and Andrew Dixon White's A History of Warfare of Science with Theology in Christendom, 1896. Atheists and agnostics championed the conflict thesis with their own purposes, but historical research gradually demonstrated that Draper and White had propagated more fantasy than fact in their efforts to prove that science and religion are locked in eternal conflict. Early modern period. French dramatist Cyrano de Bergerac, in chapter 5 of his comical history of the states and empires of the moon, published 2 years posthumously in 1657, quotes Augustine of Hippo as saying that in his day and age the earth was as flat as a stove lid and that it floated on water like half of a sliced orange. Robert Burton, in his Anatomy of Melancholy, wrote, Virgil, sometimes Bishop of Salzburg, by Bonifacius, Bishop of Mentz, was therefore called into question because he held antipodes which they made a doubt whether Christ died for, and so by that means took away the seat of hell, or so contracted it, that it could bear no proportions to heaven, and contradicted that opinion of St. Augustine, Basil, Lactantius, that held the earth round as a trencher, whom Acosta and common experience more largely confute, but not as a ball. Thus, there is evidence that accusations of flat earthism, though somewhat whimsical, Burton ends his digression with legitimate quotations of Augustine. Better doubt of things concealed than to contend about uncertainties, where Abraham's bosom is and hellfire were used to discredit opposing authorities several centuries before the 19th. Another early mention in literature is Ludwig Holberg's comedy Erasmus Montanus, 1723. Erasmus Montanus meets considerable opposition when he claims the earth is round, since all the peasants hold it to be flat. He is not allowed to marry his fiancée until he cries the earth is flat as a pancake. In Thomas Jefferson's book, Notes on the State of Virginia, 1784, framed as answers to a series of questions or queries, Jefferson uses the query regarding religion to attack the idea of state-sponsored official religions. In the chapter, Jefferson relates a series of official erroneous beliefs about nature forced upon people by authority. One of these is the episode of Galileo's struggles with authorities, which Jefferson erroneously frames in terms of the shape of the globe. Government is just as infallible too when it fixes symbols in physics. Galileo was sent to the Inquisition for affirming that the earth was a sphere. The government had declared it to be as flat as a trencher, and Galileo was obliged to abjure his error. This error, however, at length prevailed. The earth became a globe, and Descartes declared it was whirled round its axis by a vortex. The 19th century was a period in which the perception of an antagonism between religion and science was especially strong. This dispute surrounding the Darwinian revolution contributed to the birth of conflict theses, a view of history according to which any interaction between religion and science would almost inevitably lead to open hostility. Irving's biography of Columbus. In 1828, Washington Irving's highly romanticized biography, A History of Life and Voyages of Christopher Columbus, was published and mistaken by many for a scholarly work. In Book 2, Chapter 4 of his biography, Irving gave a largely fictional account of the meetings of a commission established by the Spanish sovereigns to examine Columbus's proposals. One of his more fanciful embellishments was a highly unlikely tale that the more ignorant and bigoted members on the commission had raised scriptural objections to Columbus's assertion that the earth was spherical. The issue in the 1940s was not that the shape of Earth, but its size and the position of the east coast of Asia, as Irving in Facts points out. Historical estimates from Ptolemy onward place the coast of Asia at 180 degrees east of the Canary Islands. Columbus adopted an earlier and rejected distance of 225 degrees, added 28 degrees based on Marco Polo's travel, and then placed Japan another 30 degrees further east. Starting from Cape St. Vincent in Portugal, Columbus made Eurasia stretched 283 degrees to the east, leaving the Atlantic as only 77 degrees wide. Since he planned to leave from the Canaries 9 degrees further west, his trip to Japan only need to cover 68 degrees of longitude. Columbus mistakenly assumed that the mile reference to the Arabic estimate of 56 and 2/3 miles, 91.2 kilometers, from the size of a degree matched the Italian mile of 1,480 meters, when it was about 30% longer. His estimate for the size of the degree and for the circumference of the Earth was therefore about 25% too small. The combined effect of these mistakes was that Columbus estimated the distance to Japan to only be 5,000 kilometers, or only to the eastern edge of the Caribbean, while the true figure is about 20,000 kilometers. The Spanish scholars may not have known the exact distance to the east coast of Asia, but they believed that it was significantly further than Columbus's projection, and thus was the basis of the criticism in Spain and Portugal, whether academic or among mariners, of the proposed voyage. The disputed point was not the shape of the earth, nor the idea that going west would eventually lead to Japan and China, but the ability of European ships to sail that far across the open seas. The small ships of the day, Columbus's three, varied between 20.5 and 20.3 meters, or 67 to 77 feet in length, and carried about 90 men. Simply could not carry enough food and water to reach Japan. As it was, the ships barely reached the islands of the eastern Caribbean. Already the crews were mutinous, not because of some fear of sailing off the edge, but because they were running out of food and water with no chance of any new supplies within sailing distance. They were on the edge of starvation. Columbus's expedition was saved by reaching the Americas, about which he knew nothing, precisely at the point he thought he would reach Japan. His ability to resupply with food and water from the Caribbean islands allowed him to return safely to Europe. Otherwise, his crews would have died and the ships foundered. Okay, so I'm going to connect the link. I'm going to allow you to go from Advocates for Science, and I want you to go and read the rest of this information. It's going to be very important for you to continue this research to prove out for yourselves. I've already done this work long ago, and I don't need to prove these things for myself because I have multiple points to bring up about why this is complete fallacy. So this is where we're starting. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go into what's called axial precession. Most of these are going to be Wikipedias. If you, for some reason, have problems with Wikipedia, all you have to do is take the axial precession, input it in your search bar, and pull up the information and compare it to what's here on the Wikipedias. I haven't found any misinformation in any of these. I've done my homework to cross-reference all of these with other well-known documents. So I'm going to just use the Wikipedias because they're the simplest way for us to present this information. So we're going to now we're going to, instead of getting into more reading, what we're going to do now is we're going to just take a quick understanding of each of these, and then we're going to come back in part two, and then we're going to be digging into each of these things in depth. So I'm in this part one, I'm going to connect all of these links. So in between videos, you can do a deep dive yourself, and that way when I come back to it, you'll be caught up. And if you have any questions, just place your questions in the comment section. If you are trying to present flat earth information, um, save your time. I'm just going to delete every flat earth comment that comes in. So this is not the place. As a matter of fact, if you are a flat earther, this is not the channel for you. This is not a place for you to um, drop your misinformation in my channel. It's time for you to go somewhere else because you can't. You cannot use Stellarium or one other star mapping software and come up with the information that I have with these Mazzaroth decodes. You can't do it. And so from the get-go, we're on completely different stages of understanding. You're stuck in the dark ages, and I can't help you until you work through yourself proving these things out. So if you do wish to prove these things out, then it's going to take some time for you to go through all the links I'm going to connect, and that you can do your own homework. But please save your time and energy. As I said, anybody who's dropping flat earth comments in my channel, you're going to get deleted. And I'm asking you now, if you're trying to do that kind of stuff, you're just a troll. And in my opinion, you're causing disruption in my channel, and it's my right because this is my channel. If you're a flat earther and you want to do that kind of work, you go start your own channel. Uh, and I won't be coming there to try to cause any problems for you. I believe it's highly disrespectful to do that kind of stuff. So I'm telling you up front, if you have this kind of misunderstanding, then keep it to yourself. So we're going to be talking about axial precession, and this is one of the most important parts of disclosing how our system works. Um, the Earth is it's on a rotational axis, and we have astronomical precession, and these precession of the equinoxes are a cycle that's approximately 26,000 years for what we call the great year. And that great year is more detailed if you really want to calculate the days. The 26,000 years is an approximate. I have heard that it's 25,720, but I'll be presenting in this research how there are multiple day counts But from my understanding, it's 25,720 years for the Earth to make one complete precession of the equinoxes. And that comes into play with all the calendars that are out there. If you look at the ancient Mayans, they have what is considered the most accurate calendars on Earth, other than the ancient Enochian calendars, which also are absolutely perfect, I believe, down to the day, and they match the calendars that are presented by the Maya. And so we'll be getting into that also. But it's going to be important for you to understand axial precession. And then I have here the great year. And that's, we can see here again, they have the period of approximately 25,800 years. Now, again, they say approximately. From my understanding, it's 25,720. Again, we're going to be presenting all these dates. We're going to be talking about Ptolemy and Hipparchus, and you'll see as we go through this overview, because today is just an overview. I did read from, um, I did want to bring up the flat earth, and the only reason I did readings from that is because I wanted to make sure that I don't get my comment section blasted with a bunch of flat earth information. Again, fam, if this is one of your beliefs and you're stuck on these things, just go to another channel. Don't waste my time or anybody else's time in this uh, comment section. You're just going to get deleted. I won't stand for it at all. It's disruption to me, and uh, it's highly um, it's highly I'm trying to search for the word. Well, I'm just going to say that it's just not going to be accepted. And so again, just go somewhere else. You can do your work somewhere else. This is my channel, and it's important for me to present the information that I'm working on without a bunch of roadblocks and hurdles from people who really don't have any evidence. They're just shooting darts all over the place, and none of them ever stick. You'll never get a bullseye when you're on a merry-go-round, blindfolded, throwing darts. It's not going to work out for you. So the next thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing a deep dive in the Book of Jubilees, especially with chapter 6. And so if you want to get ahead of the game and read all of chapter 6, I suggest reading the entire Book of Jubilees, but we're going to be focused on this chapter 6. We're also going to be doing a deep dive in the Book of Enoch and the Enochian calendar. And we can see here that the Enochian calendar, like the Jubilees calendar, is exactly 364 days. And one of the things that I want to point out that's really important here that we'll be doing a deep dive in is the Enoch calendar was purportedly given to Enoch by the Archangel Uriel. and we're going to be doing a deep dive in the Archangel Uriel and also Raphael, because those two angels are directly involved in the breakdown of this discussion. And then we are going to be looking at this here. This is when the Dead Sea Scrolls were first made available to the public. This is September 22nd, 1991. This was when the very first pieces of the Dead Sea Scrolls were released. I began my research in, I believe, 94 or 95. And so I have 30 years of researching the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Nag Hammadi Library, all the ancient books and the ancient understandings. I've been doing historical research in the Levant area. I went to apologetic school when I was in my 20s, and this became my work of proving out a matter when I was in apologetics school. None of the so-called apologists, none of the so-called apologists could answer one single question that I proposed to them. So I dropped out because I felt like I was not going to get the answers from this um, so-called Christian-based uh, apologetics program. So I decided that I was going to strike out on my own in my early 30s, and I began the work of being an apologist for the ancient understanding of all these things based on the Dead Sea Scrolls, because they were finding all of these ancient books that were not in the Roman canon, and that put me on a completely different path than the typical Christian church. And so I left the Christian churches when I was in my early 30s, and I began to do deep research myself. Had already begun to research the ancient Israelites, the ancient Egyptians, all of the religions that were in the Levant area. I began to study the Babylonian uh, religion. I began to study the all of the religions, including Zoroastrianism, and all of the understandings of the heavens and the celestial bodies, and all of their involvement with these religious concepts. I did not do that research for me to join some other religion. I got the foundational understandings of being an apologist and proving out your belief system, and I marched on from that point on my own, standing on what I had already learned. And if you are not familiar with my older channel, then you can pull that up. My older channel is called Kadash Culture, and it is on YouTube. I believe it's still up. I was locked out of that channel for some reason. I I got many, many, many strikes, and I was incredibly attacked on that channel because of the work that I was doing, revealing Dead Sea Scroll information, getting into the Nag Hammadi, uh, breaking down the discrepancies with the Roman Church, with all of the councils that they performed to um, hide the books that were originally available to all of the first followers of Christ. You have to understand that the original body of believers, what we call the church, had access to all of these documents. And they were used and studied by all of the original members of the so-called church, the original followers of Christ. There were no um, limitations on your ability to study books or documents or any other religious materials. As a matter of fact, from my research on the Essenes and the very first followers of Christ, uh, they were very open to studying amongst themselves, and they did not have this argumentative spirit where they wouldn't accept any of these other books. They were wide open to reading them and incorporating the information into their understandings, and that's why there was so many sects of Judaism. If you don't know, there was three sects of Judaism during the before Christ. There was the Essenes, there was the Pharisees, and there was the Sadducees. Unfortunately, because of the nature of the modern church and the councils and the murder of millions, literally millions of the followers of Christ were murdered because of this type of information. And they were murdered by the church. So it's going to become very, very important for you to prove out these matters because um, these churches do not follow the words of Messiah because they literally hunted down and killed anybody who did not agree with their doctrines and their canon and their breakdown of how history went. And if you argued or you were somebody that held a different stance than them, they essentially labeled you as a witch or worse, and they would burn you at the stake or feed you to the lions or run a stick through you and put you on the side of the road. Uh, they murdered families and they murdered children. And in some cases, as we will be disclosing in this study, they murdered entire areas of people because they did not stand with the Roman Catholic Church. So this is going to become very important because the Dead Sea Scrolls were found to have these extra canonical books. And we'll also be talking about the Ethiopian Bible. And we'll be also talking about the Eastern Orthodox Bible because those have maintained some of the books that were taken out. Then we're also going to be doing a really, really deep dive into the Dead Sea Scrolls. That's going to be a very important part of this study. We're going to be getting into the orbital dynamics of the planets, and we're going to be doing a full deep dive into all of these dynamics of gravitation, the objects that are in space, and how this field of study understands the behaviors of planets, moons, satellites, and other celestial bodies. Again, I'm going to connect all of these so that you can begin your uh, proving out a matter. This is not, again, this is not for the lighthearted. If you're just looking for me to give you a date of the rapture, that's not going to happen. I'm not here to get uh, people coming to my channel because I post a rapture high watch rapture date. I'm giving you high watch times based on the signs in the sun, moon, and stars, and nothing else. When that time comes, I believe we're all going to know. I believe we're very close, but there's things that have to happen in order for the escape to happen, and we are just now getting to a point in the celestial sphere where we're seeing the wedding signs. And I've been presenting that through fall, and now that we're in the winter, I am doing my best to show all of the signs in the sun, moon, and stars. If you really want to prove out what I'm doing, then go back to my Potash Culture channel. It's the channel is Kadash, which is CHADASH underscore culture. It's Kadash culture. And you can look up what the word Kadash means. And then you can dig into that older channel if you really want to prove these things out. So we're also going to be talking, we already went over that. We're going to be talking about Ptolemy and Hipparchus and the geocentric versus heliocentric models. And we're going to be looking at these older systems of eccentricity or the circles or epic cycles. We're going to be looking how um, these things manifested through time, and all of the true scientists that were doing the work to discover this. These were professional astronomers. Um, some of them were very, very, very well known, and they did not have the type of problems that we have in our modern world with so much misinformation. These men were doing all of the mathematical um, work to break all these things down, and that's very important when it comes to understanding these things. So we will be doing a deep dive into Hipparchus. We're also going to be getting into Nicholas Copernicus because he was the main scientist. There were others before him, but he was the main scientist who changed the geocentric model to the heliocentric model, and his work is where we really get most of our modern information is from Copernicus, and then also from Johannes Kepler. And then we're going to look at geocentrism, and we're going to be doing a deep dive into all of these things. And then we're going to be looking at Johannes Kepler. And so this is going to be the nature of our study. Again, I'm going to connect all of these links. We're going to come back in part 2, and then we're going to begin reading through all of these things, and I'm going to be bringing out the most important parts within each of these studies. And again, this might be a 6-part series. It's going to be vital in the understanding, and you can't pass any of this information up. Otherwise, you won't have the, the, the complete foundation of evidence to prove out what I'm doing and the work that I have been given. And so before we leave today, I want to show you something that I just found. This is incredible, family. I'm using the Sky Live because for some reason with Stellarium Web, these comets come and go, they disappear, and I still have not had the opportunity to rectify the problems I have with my computer. I haven't been able to work in 8 weeks, almost 8 weeks, and I am going to have to go sit down with a computer specialist to figure out what I did wrong that caused the problems. It's caused a problem with my recording software. I used to be able to, on my other computer, I would be able to take uh, independent screen grabs from all of these things, and I lost that ability. And then for some reason, Stellarium will not load onto this computer. So I must have done something, but I wanted to show you this. This is 3I Atlas aligning on February the 17th during the solar eclipse, which again, family, is a wedding ring eclipse. This is February 17th, 2026. 3I Atlas aligns with the bridegroom, Pollux, and you can see here that Jupiter is also aligned with the bridegroom. This is a very, very important sign, and we'll be doing a deeper dive into that. And what I have here is a follow-up from the last Mazzaroth decode. I got stuck on asteroid Enki. I for some reason I didn't put any of the details for Enki down in my research, but I pulled that back up, And so this is a just a quick um, understanding. This is asteroid Enki, and on the 7th, which is today, asteroid Enki comes out of retrograde motion. And I wanted to finish the video here because this is one of the most important parts of debunking flat Earth. I have talked with scientists and a bunch of other people who uh, prove out retrograde motion and how that's one of the most important signs that flat Earth model is corrupt, because you cannot have retrograde motion without the celestial mechanics, because even with the Star of Bethlehem family, the Star of Bethlehem is the planet Jupiter. Now, the Catholic Church didn't know anything about that. They didn't know celestial mechanics. They didn't understand anything. As a matter of fact, they tried to kill all of the scientists that came out with a heliocentric model. And we'll be getting into that also, that they were after all of these scientists with their proofs because they believed that science and religion had no place um, aligning. And I don't believe that at all. I believe that in a proper understanding, science, especially with modern physics, proves a creator. And especially if you're looking at quantum mechanics and quantum physics, I have not heard one single quantum physicist deny creation. They are all creationists. Now they may have a difference in opinion to a lot of people within the church, but in my research over 10 years of studying quantum mechanics and quantum physics, uh, none of them, no, I haven't heard one single one of them not talk about creation. And they are all creationists. And so that's going to be another part of our work. But right here, we see asteroid Enki, and it is coming out of retrograde motion in the constellation Taurus today. So that was the missing link in my last Mazzaroth decode, and so I wanted to catch up there. If any of you have any questions at all, please paste them in the comment section, and I will do my best to answer the questions and try to be as detailed as I can. Again, this is not for the faint of heart. This is for those of you who are really trying to prove this work out, and you want to know the difference between lunar calendars, solar calendars, solar calendars, and then what I am presenting, which is the Mazzaroth calendar. And the reason that I called it the Mazzaroth calendar is because there are many people who are claiming Enochian calendars. They're claiming different names for the calendars. And I wanted to differentiate because I learned some things reading the book of Enoch, reading the book of Jubilees, and then also in my 30 years of research, I have come across information that has allowed me to decode this work in a way that I don't think anybody else has ever done. You're gonna have to go back to Enoch, and I haven't found one other researcher that has done this work correctly. They're all missing very, very important, vital pieces of the puzzle, and that's why they misunderstand and they peg their dates incorrectly. So we're going to prove out how the sun and the moon, and most importantly, the stars are involved in decoding the heavens because it's not a lunar calendar, which is 354 days. It's not a solar calendar, which is 365.2422 or something like that. Um, and in order to truly understand what a 364-day star calendar is, you have to understand the three cycles that Enoch laid out in the heavens. It's three interconnected calendars. And if you don't understand that, that's why there's confusion. It's if you've studied the Maya and all of the different calendars they have, you'll actually realize that they all work like wheels within wheels. And that's exactly what Enoch is presenting to us. Wheels within wheels. And these three wheels work together, not separately. So I'm going to show you how the faithful witness of the moon works and how that is tied to the metonic cycles, and how, if you really do your deep research, um, the 360 days is calculated in a specific way. The four established columns or pillars are established, and how that adjusts based on precession of the equinoxes, and how the adjustments are made for the alignments with precession. So I want to thank everybody for coming. Again, please, if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to take the time to answer your questions. Place them in the comments, and please be respectful and realize that we're here to honor each other, not to tear each other down. And again, if you're a flat earther and you're trying to disrupt this body, you're going to get cut faster than a blink of an eye. Much love.